Welcome to our live stream for this Sunday, July the 5th, 2020. We greet you, we bless you, we see God in you. Welcome again to our live stream. We're grateful and thankful to all of you that each week tune in, join us, who share these videos, for all of the kind comments and remarks, text messages and emails that I get from people who talk about how you are helped, empowered, and strengthened from what it is that we do as this great community that's called Open Heart Spiritual Center. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's Open Heart Spiritual Center's virtual service. I'd like to welcome you wherever you are joining us at today, and that we just take the time to just be present in this moment and allow ourselves to receive the knowing and the truth of who we are through the message today. I'm grateful that you're here joining us today. And I just want to say, Happy Independence Day. And let us just take a moment to think about independence and what that means for each of us. And though there may have been things that come before our time that happen that we may not agree with, or there may be things that are happening right now that we don't agree with. But let us allow ourselves to think and feel and know what independence within ourselves means. Because we are the only ones that judge ourselves. We can allow ourselves to recognize and realize what's going on in the world today and what's happening and try to be a part of that. Or we can turn within to that divine source that dwells and has its beingness within each and every single one of us that says, you are, I am, we are, all are one. And so now I invite you to know that independence is oneness, and there is a collective unity with that oneness. So I greet you, I see you, I recognize you, and I see the God in each and every single one of you. And let's just take a moment to breathe in. And as we breathe in, we know that as each of us breathes in, we breathe the breath of God, that divine source that is within each and every single one of us. And I bless this service today with all that have a part, the music, the affirmative reading, the inspiration, and the messenger. Let's bless the messenger, for they are a conduit of something, of a greater knowing, of a divinity that brings the message to us here and now, and that we are present in this moment, in each and every single moment, present and aware and awake and at choice, and we're choosing right here and right now. And so I just simply am so grateful to be a part of this service, to have you a part of this service, and knowing that it is done in the mind of God. And I simply say, together, and so it is.
Our daily affirmation: walking the spiritual path on practical feet. Today, I make a commitment to grow consciously. Any part of me that is complacent will have to wake up. Any part of me that is mindless will have to become mindful. In these uncertain times, I know that something higher and better is coming, and I faithfully move forward, trusting in the transforming power of spirit.
Happy birthday to all of our July babies. We've got a great group of people celebrating this month. Happy birthday to Damien, Gail, Charles, Jocelyn, Herbert, Matthew, Pat, and Jasper. It's about that time. We are heading toward Election Day here in Tennessee. August the 6th is Election Day, and there are some important dates. July the 7th is the last day to register to vote for the August elections. Early voting begins on July 17th. July 30th is the last day to request an absentee ballot, and early voting ends on August 1st. You can see the information about how to receive your absentee ballot either by requesting it from email or calling this number 901-222-6800. Or you can also register to vote online, and you see the website here, overgovote.10.gov. Our theme for this month of July is walking the spiritual path with practical feet. There is an expression that has been attributed to many people. I've heard it attributed to Martin Luther King Jr. and many other folks, but it goes like this. Sometimes our religion can be so heavenly high that it's no earthly good. Sometimes our religion can be so heavenly high that it can be no earthly good. You've heard me in the past few weeks in the midst of calls for equality and for justice, for us examining the things that are happening in our world with regards to race, with regards to police brutality, with regards to COVID-19, and all of the other things that are emerging here. That it's easy for people, oftentimes in our circles of the New Thought, Ancient Wisdom circles, to call for or to engage in what I call spiritual bypass, where their ideas are, well, if we just go into retreat into our inner sanctuary and meditate and do all of those things, we won't have to worry about those ideas, or those are not things that we need to be concerned with. And for me, and I also know for many others whom I've had responses from, this is not acceptable. There are things that we have to do. There are things that we can contribute to this entire process. There are a few people who have said to me, I wish you would go on and move to something else, or all of that. But I think that without us applying the things that we know and the things that we have to our daily lives, we are doing ourselves and the world a disservice. There is something to be said for taking those tools and those things that we know, those things that are part of our community, and applying them to help make our world and our personal lives better. Many years ago, I took some training in something that's called Bowen Family Systems Theory. And one of the interesting ideas that I learned in that was something that was called the idea of homeostasis. That is you take, for example, a family system, a system in which people are living and existing as family, identifying themselves as family, and someone within that system desires to change. And it doesn't matter whether the system is functional or dysfunctional or whatever, but when that person demands for and desires change and makes those attempts to change, then the process of homeostasis kicks in, where people for so long have been used to getting along in a certain way and conducting their lives in a certain way. And when one person in that system attempts to make a change, everyone else tries to pull them back, because they lived their lives and been functioning in a certain way, and the idea of having to change is uncomfortable. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's an uncle, I'll call him Uncle Seymour, who has an anger problem, and people know that at family gatherings and all of that, Uncle Seymour is going to explode if you say the wrong thing. So people are walking around on eggshells. They're talking in certain ways and conducting themselves in certain ways not to upset Uncle Seymour. And then one day somebody decides, well, this isn't right. Why should we allow Uncle Seymour's behavior and his actions affect everyone else? I'm going to do something about it. So they decide that they're going to change, that they're going to respond to Uncle Seymour in a different way. Well, when they make that declaration and they decide to change, there are going to be people that will come to that person and say, why don't you be quiet? Why don't you just let sleeping dogs lie? Why don't you just go on? We've been functioning this way for a while and we'll continue. You don't have to disrupt things in the way that they are. And they will make all kinds of effort to bring that person back to the way that things used to be. And unless that person resists the efforts to pull them back, and unless they persist in making change, it's not going to happen. In the same way that I see in our society, in our communities, where there are efforts to make things change and to call for change, there are also voices that are trying to pull things back to the way that they used to be. There are efforts, and unless we collectively persist and resist and do the things that we need to do, we're not going to have the kind of community, and as you've heard me talk about also, the world that works for everyone. It's important to recognize that we can, from the collective consciousness that we have, from the opportunities that we have to make a difference, to make change in our world, to make change in our communities, and to do that. But we start from the perspective and the idea that there is power in community. There is power in collective consciousness. I was just reading about a study where they took two groups of people and they did something that I know I wouldn't do, but they did this for the sake of the study. They took one group of people and they had them plunge their hand into a container filled with ice, and to hold it there for as long as they could until the pain became unbearable and they had to take it out of the ice again. The first group did that. They timed how long they kept their hand in. And then the second group, they did the same process. And the second group lasted longer. They were able to endure longer because there was one difference. The first group did that by themselves. The second group had someone, a family member, or even a stranger, sit along beside them and tell them, you can do this, you can make this. And that group lasted longer because they had someone that was supporting them, someone that was encouraging them. There is power in community. There is power in collective consciousness. And you and I can make a difference by continuing to lift our voices and to do the things that we do, to know that we have the spiritual resources. I talk about that all of the time. That's why we make meditation available on Tuesdays. That's why we have a daily affirmation that we do every month that changes, that try to make it relevant to our theme and to the messages and to what's going on in the world. That's why we encourage you to use the power of affirmative prayer and to see things that as we encounter the news, and yes, I know the news and all of the things that we encounter in social media and all of the other things that are happening can be unfortunate and they can disturb us, but they also provide us with a means or a target for which to do our praying and our spiritual mind treatments, our affirmative prayer, as we not become consumed by it, but see those things and take the opportunity to engage in prayer, to take the opportunity to engage in meditation. We know that there have been efforts around the world, and I've been a part of those in some cases, where people have designated on a certain day that we all will gather together and meditate and hold powerful intentions toward change or toward peace and those kinds of things. And that can make a difference. Understanding that. One of my favorite stories, and one of our members who's made her transition, it became a favorite story of hers when I shared it, was about a contest that was given for artists to depict peace. And so they had all kinds of entries of people painting serene settings, sunsets, and of oceanside, and of green grassy meadows, and all of the things that were said to be their ideas and their depictions of peace. And as they gathered for the award to find out who was going to be the winner of that contest, the people were surprised because the picture that won was not one that had all of the serene setting and all of that, but it was a picture that actually was of a waterfall. And the power that came from that picture, the judge declared, was what people were looking at and said. People were saying, well, how can something like that be a depiction of peace? Because the picture was, the artist had rendered that waterfall in such a powerful way, you could almost hear the sound of the roaring water as millions of gallons rushed over the cliff, over the mountainside, and cascaded down below. And all of the things, if you've ever watched a waterfall and know what magnificence and what power and also what violence those waterfalls can generate. And people were stunned that that would be the winning painting depicting peace. But there in the corner was a deer, a doe, and a small deer, mother with her baby. And they, at a pool that was right there, that was a part of the water below, were there calmly sipping water. And the judge pointed out that peace is not the absence of chaos and violence, but peace is to be able to find your place, to find your center in the midst of it. And that for me is what walking the spiritual path with practical feet is. In the midst of all of these things, being able to find center, being able to find that place that empowers us, to find that place where we can find calm and peace. Like many of you, I'm sure, and I know that because I've heard from people, I've seen people post about it, that all over this country the past few days, but in particular on last evening, July 4th, places around our communities sounded like literal war zones because of all of the fireworks and the gunfire that took place. And I use that as an opportunity to send out energy and prayers to those individuals that are disturbed by this, in particular, those people who are veterans who have PTSD, but even other people for whom loud noises and all of that present a particular problem, and especially for our pets who have no way of really putting this into context. And I'm sure many of them were scared out of their wits and found themselves with tremendous anxiety and all of that. But in the midst of that, I also found a way to become quiet within myself, so that even though the loud noises were annoying, even though the loud noises were disturbing, I still knew within that I was all right. In fact, I joked with my wife because she went to sleep. And I said, you can sleep through anything. And she said, I knew that I was safe. I knew that I was all right. And that's the kind of assurance that I'm looking this month to talk about us having in the midst of advocating for change, in the midst of us resisting the efforts for change not to happen and persisting until it does. There's a story about a particular mental institution that had a ward that was known to have problematic patients. It was one where the people who were assigned to it felt like it was a punishment to be assigned there. The people there were particularly unruly and particularly disturbed. And one day there was a patient that checked in. There were no other places to put him, so they put him on that ward. In one of the staff meetings, they talked about how a few weeks had passed and that ward that had been unruly, that ward had been in many ways kind of a war zone, had calmed down. And they were trying to pinpoint the reason why, when one of the people raised the notion that since that particular patient had checked in and been placed in that ward, things had calmed down. One of the doctors decided to go and find out what it was that that patient did. How was it that his mere presence had changed the context and changed the texture of that particular ward? And very calmly, as he sat there and listened, the patient said, "Oh, it's not me. I don't do anything. It's my visitor." The doctor, "Your visitor?" "Yes, my visitor." And he recalled having looked at this patient's chart that no one had come to visit him. They'd made note of that and all of that. He said, but you don't have any visitors. You don't have anyone that has come. The patient said, "Oh, yes, I do. That every day Jesus comes and he sits by my side and lets me know that all is okay." Now, I know for some people in this context, the idea of that Jesus and all of that taking on some of the notions of traditional religion. But my point of sharing this is this. Whatever presence or power you identify with that brings you a sense of peace, that brings you a sense of wholeness, that brings you an awareness and an understanding of who you truly are, that helps you to know that in the midst of chaos, in the midst of violence, in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of injustice, in the midst of all of those things, that which is within you that helps you to know that you know that you know that you know who it is that you are, and helps you to find center, that place that is deep within you, that is beyond all of the things of this world, all of the things that are happening, that you can return to again and again, that informs you, that informs your life. That when we are able to touch that, when you touch that, and when I touch that, we can begin to transform and to change the environments that we are in, to change the places where we are, because we have peace. My dream is for people to look at us as Open Heart Spiritual Center and say there's something about that group of folks who are a part of this community, whether it is you come to our center, whether it is that you watch our live stream, whatever it is you do to support and be a part of this movement, there's something within you that helps you to understand truly what it means to walk the spiritual path with practical feet. And so it is.
They said you'd never make it so far, and ever since they said it, it's been hard. But never mind the nights you had to cry, 'cause you would never let it go inside. You work real hard and you know exactly what you want and need, so believe. And you can never give up, you can reach your goals. Just talk to your soul and say, I can and I will. I know my dreams are real. I'll stand and I'll stand. That's what I believe. Your goals are just a thing in your soul, and you know that your moves will let it show. You keep creating pictures in your mind, so just believe they will come true in time. It will be fine. Leave all of your cares and your stress behind. Just let it go. Let the music flow inside. Forget all your pain and just start to believe. I can
Infinite prosperity is mine to share. I am blessed. Thank you for your continued support of Open Heart. You can give in several ways via our church app. If you don't already have it on your phone, you can go to our website at ohsc901.com and download it there. Or you can go to this website and click on the Give button and donate there. Finally, you can text the word GIVE to 615-422-4292.
There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all for myself. I didn't know that the grace of God was sufficient, and I didn't know that the love of God was at hand. But now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling to make it through another day, you got to let it go, let it all go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggles, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggles, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggles, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God.
Just hold on to your dream.
Don't give up.
Don't give up and don't give in. Although it seems you'll never win, you will always pass the test as long as you keep your head to the sky.
You can win.
You can win as long as you keep your head to the sky. Be optimistic.
Second inning. You will always.
You will always do your best if you learn to never say never. Maybe down, but you're not out.
Don't give up and don't give in. Harmony.
Don't give up and don't give in. Although it seems